Hello and welcome to this week's Reddit reply, where we go through different subreddits and answer a bunch of different questions on there. And this isn't a one-way conversation; it never is. If you have any thoughts about any of these questions, make sure to leave them down in the comments. I always appreciate it. And then while you're down there, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. So let's jump right into this and let's go to the very first one, which is over on the Marvel Champions subreddit page. On a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate Sabretooth scenario difficulty? And for me, when this scenario first came out, I probably would have rated this higher, like a 4 or 5. I feel like now that I've played it a ton, there's certain decks and certain things that seem to work better for him, right? Like Wolverine aggression rush deck, or just you don't even need to be an aggression deck. You could just rush with Wolverine, right? Because he's so strong. You could take him out in like 3 rounds before he can find Senator Kelly, and you don't have to worry about that whole part of the scenario, right? Really, any rush deck will take out Sabretooth pretty fast, and you don't have to worry about it. There's some pretty good Justice decks if you can get through pretty fast and get to Senator Kelly that work pretty well. Certain protection decks work pretty well. There's a lot of different things you can actually do to kind of mitigate Sabretooth, and I feel like now that we understand him a bit better and a bit more, his difficulty has come down quite a bit. But he's still hard, right? He's on a little bit of a harder side. I feel like that's kind of what some people are saying too, that people were struggling with him. They give him about a 4, and they use Stun and Confuse a lot, right? To prevent activation, which is really kind of smart, right? It's really smart to stop any activation that he has. This way he can't really do much. But Stun and Confuse decks usually work pretty well against most villains. But yeah, so this is, I guess, the first question to you all. Do you all still struggle with Sabretooth? Like, do you find him hard? Do you find him easy? I do find him as, like, probably the best. Yeah, I would say he's probably number 1 for the first villain in one of the expansion boxes, right? He's not the best villain overall, but like if you ranked all the villains that come in expansion boxes, he's probably the best number 1 to come out of there, right? Not the best villain, right? But just the very first one that you face in the box, he's probably the best one. So I really enjoyed him. I really like him. But I need to play more of him. I definitely do. So, all right. Next one is also the Marvel Champions subreddit. And this is a question that gets asked a ton. And I want to do a longer video on this, so I won't go too in-depth in this. But it's which hero pack to buy. Now I know, generally speaking, very generally speaking, when you talk about which thing to buy next for Marvel Champions, people will generally say you buy the big box expansions, right? Probably Rise of Red Skull, maybe X-Men if you're really into that instead, and then you could probably skip Guardians and then work your way up through everything else and get Guardians last. There's a few different ways to do it, but if you're just asking specifically for the hero packs, the common advice will be get whatever hero pack interests you, like as far as hero goes, which is a fine way of doing it too. If you're looking for just good staple cards, like basic cards that will go into most decks, I still think Wasp is the best hero pack you can buy out there, mainly because, one, she has Ironheart, basic Ironheart ally. She has Miles Morales ally, which is really good too, and has Queen Carrier. Now, Queen Carrier is available in a few packs now, but the fact that it's in there really helps it out. So especially if you go the Avengers route, I think that makes a lot of sense to start off with Wasp. I think it gives you the gray basic cards, resource cards too. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it gives you that as well. But anyway, those other 3 cards alone, I think, make Wasp worth it. Plus, Wasp is a really interesting hero in general, one of my favorites. But if you're looking for general, like, what should I buy next for like deck building purposes, that's probably it. Then it depends on which aspect you want to go with, right? Because like there's certain heroes like Hulk. Maybe you don't want Hulk because he's not the strongest or best hero, but he's got some good aggression cards in there, right? He's got some good stuff in there. So it becomes this weird thing where eventually you're gonna want to buy it all, and that's why it's almost smarter just start with the big box expansions and then work on the heroes later. But yeah, as far as hero packs to buy, there's no right order to do things, and there's many ways to do the things, right? If you just want to get your favorite heroes, if you want to, stick with a certain type of heroes, right? You just want X-Men, or you just want Web Warriors, or just want the Guardians of the Galaxy, whatever, right? There's so many ways to break this down. There's really not a right way. But if you're looking to like bolster your starting heroes, I would say Wasp is a good place to start. For just getting like the basic cards in there. All right, next up is actually in the Arkham Horror subreddit, and because I think this question hits home for a lot of people, and that is they are new to the game and having serious troubles. What are they missing? And basically, they're playing Knight of the Zealot, which is the scenario that comes in the core box. And by the time the Ghoul Lord comes out, I don't see a way to not die. They're playing Roland. I've generally been hit once, meaning I can only take 2-ish hits when playing him. And then Daisy just can't do much. And they're really struggling. They're really struggling. And this person gives a pretty good advice. And this is a thing that we don't think about that often in Arkham Horror, especially people from other LCGs, right? So a lot of times, like coming from a Lord of the Rings background, my thought is I attack everything, right? I attack. Or even Marvel Champions, right? I attack. And in Arkham, attacking isn't always the best option. And sometimes it's not like the right option at all, right? You just, no matter how strong you are, it's not good enough. Evading enemies is kind of key. And this is essentially what this person gets into during this whole reply, is that you can exhaust enemies. And exhausting enemies when you evade them is super helpful, right? Especially running away, and it takes them like a whole round to stand back up, and then they would have to chase after you, right? It's really interesting. And then talk about getting into like how you can kill the priest before he kills you, type of thing, and how they spawns and all that stuff, and good cards and whatever. But I feel like for Arkham Horror, like people that are new into that series, and I think there's a lot of people still getting into that series, that one of the big things to remember is that attacking isn't always your best bet, right? It's evading usually is better, right? Evading is usually a better option a lot of times. Not all the time, but a lot of times. All right, so our last one that we have is actually on the board game subreddit. And they asked if your number one game is outside BGG's top 1000. Now, this is pretty interesting, right? And they say even the 500 would be interesting. And a couple people respond, and a lot of their games are in the top 1000. This person's former number one game was New Angeles, and that's at 1245. But for a lot of people, it's a lot of their stuff sits in there for the most part. And if you go through the BGG list, this list hasn't changed too much over the years. Obviously, Arc Nova moved up a lot. My personal favorite is Too Many Bones, sitting here at 38. I mean, Marvel Champions is up at 36, right? A lot of my games, I think, are in the top 500 for sure. I don't know if there's any that I really have that are outside of the top 500. But a lot of them sit up there, which always brings up the interesting question. If we like games because they're in the top 500, right? So we give them a better chance of being played, or are the games in the top 500 really that good and there's not too many worth playing outside? Not that they're not worth playing outside, but like the ones up in the top, let's say 500, are truly better than everything else, right? And this goes to a larger conversation and argument and discussion about Board Game Geek rankings in general, because people get really kind of like hot and bothered about some of this stuff and take it really I guess they're very passionate, I guess we'll say, about it. We're just like, how can this game be ranked higher than this game? There's 2 spots ahead. How is that, a thing, or whatever it is, they get upset. And for me, I've never cared about the rankings. I don't put much stock in them. I just like games I like. I use it as a way to kind of track of like what's new and what's out there and what should I be paying attention to. That's about it for me. But yeah, so anyway, I guess first, what's your top game, and is it ranked outside the top, let's say even 100, right? Outside the top 100, then outside the 500, whatever. Are there any games that you like outside the top 500? I did a quick glance for a few different games to see if any of mine fell outside of it. And the closest I got, which I'll show you right now, is I'm a big fan of Clinic Deluxe Edition. I really love the game, and it's ranked 915, so it's not outside the top 1,000, but it's pretty close. But I really like that game. It is one of my favorite games. I really enjoy it. And I like it with all the expansions, though I haven't opened up all the expansions. But the solo mode's kind of lacking. But I really like Alban Viard as a designer. I think he designs really good games. I think they're really fun. So when I was quickly searching around and looking, that was the closest one I found that was like kind of like, further out and whatnot. But that was it. That's all I was able to really find. So that's why I'm wondering for you all, what's your favorite game? Do you have any games that you really enjoy? Like you would consider like a top 20 game of yours is close to like outside the 1,000 mark or anything like that. So those are all of our Reddit replies this week. Again, like I said, leave all your all your responses down below in the comments for any of these topics, you know, for Sabretooth scale, which hero pack to buy, any new player tips for Arkham Horror, and your #1 game. So I hope you enjoyed this Reddit reply. I enjoyed doing this, and I will see you all next week. Make sure to like and subscribe. Take care.